is up, my MMA heads? This is Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and I want to put you on alert because it's about to get dangerous. I am joined tonight by a man on a 3-fight winning streak who will be looking to take it to 4 next Saturday at UFC Newark, and that man is Shreveport, Louisiana's own Matt Danger Schnell. Matt, thanks for giving me some time tonight before the fight next week, because I know you're having trouble a little bit seeing. I mean, if I put up the 2 fingers, oh, I said 2, so I already gave you the number, but can you see the fingers good? I know you're dilated a little bit.
Yeah, that was 4.
Right.
Yeah, I was dilated. That was 4. I'm sharp as a tack though.
Now, I first wanted to talk about the Smolka fight, which is a big deal. This is a landmark win for you. You know, before he recently returned to the UFC, his first run was a long and distinguished run with the UFC. He's a legit name in the sport. Right away, there seemed to be a speed advantage for you in terms of the striking. How long did it take for you to sense that in the fight, or was it something that you knew going into the fight as a flyweight who had moved up to bantamweight for that fight, that you already were likely to have a speed advantage when it came to the striking?
I think we all thought that, and amongst my crew, my group of guys, we felt as if we would have the advantage athletically. Now, we took Louis Smolka very seriously and grappled a lot and had a game plan, and even with it turning out as well as it did, I think I did kind of play into his hand a little bit, if I'm being honest. And sometimes tactical mistakes can lead to losses, and it actually ended up falling into my favor on this night. You know, he didn't want to strike anymore, and I think that pop and speed can sometimes be very surprising to somebody. And we had some good exchanges. Me and Smolka did, you know, and he was in that fight, but I think he felt that I had the advantage up top, and thus he created a grappling opportunity. Even though I scored the takedown, he kind of created that opportunity. And looking forward, I should be smarter, separate. And
that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because the next question was going to be that it did go to the ground. You know, that's where he's strongest. Even in the broadcast of the fight, when the fight went to the ground, they kind of mentioned, oh, this is where he wants to fight. This is where he does his best. Yet you ended up submitting a guy that's known for his grappling and his submission game. He got more submissions than decisions or wins in his career. Is that like a feather in your cap to get a win on a guy like that? And going into that, did you feel a level of confidence if or possibly when the fight maybe did go to the ground?
I've been grappling my entire career. That's what I started doing. And I'm confident in my ability to handle myself anywhere that the fight takes place. So, sure, it's a feather in one's cap just to submit a guy like Louis Smolka. I mean, he's tough. And not only is he tough, but ask guys who have fought him in the past how difficult he was to grapple with. He's like made of bubble gum, you know. And I was able to, add up some punches and make him feel uncomfortable, and then get him in trouble on the mat, and kind of, not that I set that triangle up. It was more of a reactive thing. He postured up, and I just shot it again, and was able to get him and strangle him. So I've been doing this for a long time. I expect to, if you put me in those spots, I expect to be attacking. And if you don't have good defense, you might get strangled.
Now, the fascinating part of the Smolka win is you did it by going up and fighting at bantamweight, like I just mentioned. It was your first finish in the promotion after winning your last 2 by a decision, and you looked really impressive. Like, if anybody saw it or I'm mentioning here, you looked really good. The speed, that you dominated him on the floor. So the obvious question is, why return to flyweight for this fight coming up, especially since you did look so good in that division? And kind of, we all know flyweights in the UFC is in a weird place right now.
Well, I think I'm one of the best flyweights in the world, and I want to win the championship of the world. I want to wear that flyweight title one day, and I think that I can. I'm in the top 15 right now. I'm right there, big wins. Who knows what can happen? I can make myself a nice little spot, and maybe be a part of bringing this division back around too, and creating some interest in it. I can compete at 135 pounds. I can compete, man. Listen, I can compete in a fist fight. I like my chances. So Yeah, I like the matchups at 135. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of tough guys. There's a lot of tough guys at flyweight too. I think everybody who survived the Purge
Hmm.
is very, very good, and even some of those guys sitting out on the outside, uh, Dustin Ortiz's and Eric Shelton's. These guys are incredible, and they're not even in right now. Justin Scoggins,
Hmm.
uh, Jared Brooks. I mean, these are murderers, and so you got to understand that the division is shallow, but it's tough, and I expect to scale it. Back to flyweight because I'm small too. I mean, I walk around at 145 pounds.
Hmm.
I'm not a bantamweight. I'm not a 155 pound guy. So I am a natural flyweight, and I would prefer to fight in a weight class where I have more uh,
Mm.
advantages than disadvantages. And it is nice to be a bantamweight because the advantage is speed. And I think I also carry another level of pop into the bantamweight division, carrying an extra 4 or 5 pounds. When I hit dudes, it hurts them, and I understand that. So we're not going to close the door on anything. I can compete anywhere.
It does. How did you? What was some of the other? Like, how did you feel in terms of, like your health? And like, is there a big difference for you from fighting at flyweight to bantamweight, or not really? Because are you not really cutting too much to make flyweight, and it's you're not draining yourself? What do you say? What would you say you walk around with? You're like maybe 2 weeks away from fight night in flyweight, and what are you at like 3 nights away from weigh-ins at flyweight?
3 nights from weigh-ins, I'm probably like
Okay.
133 pounds. Whereas bantamweight, I was 140, and I was eating and drinking. Also, something to note: Louis
Yeah.
Smolka is a flyweight as well. So back to the bantamweight question before, it is important to note that
Mm.
Smolka's a flyweight. That being said, I'll whip some bantamweights too. I like a lot of those matchups. But for now, we're going to fight at flyweight. There won't be much difference in my weight. I think I walked into the cage at
Wow.
143 pounds. Fight night, I'll be
Yeah.
139. So we're talking 4
Mm-hmm.
pounds. That's not much. But it does make a difference, and it's something that we've taken note of, and try to focus on making sure that we're still carrying our best effort in there, even though we're a little
Talk
lighter.
to me about your opponent coming up next week at back at flyweight, Espinoza. What makes this fight fun for you, but also has some pun intended danger to it? What makes it a little dangerous? What makes it fun?
Well, he's a great fighter. He's pretty complete. He's one of these guys similar to myself that came up in this day and age where you're good at everything. He's also got a wrestling background. I know he's a good grappler. He's a strangler in his own right. So there's a lot of tricky things to his game, and I'm trying just not to get bogged down in the minutia. I'm gonna go out there and do my best and put it on the line like I do every single time, and we hope that the pieces will fall into place as they typically do. I feel good. I've worked hard. I haven't cut any corners, and I respect this guy. I know he's tough, and I expect a good fight, and I'm gonna go out there and give it my best effort. And I think I've shown in the past that my best effort is pretty
Another
dang
win
good.
next week makes four in a row for you. Do you feel a win, especially a decisive win at that, earns you serious consideration for the top 10 at flyweight? Even though, yeah, you won at 135, but you made a perfect point. Yeah, you won at 135, but you got beat a guy who's also well known for being a flyweight. So it's almost like four in a row at flyweight. Do you feel, because you already mentioned you already in the top 15, should you be top 10 with the win over Espinoza next week?
Yes.
But would you expect, if you were to get a win over him, would you expect to finally get like a top 10 level flyweight next? Would you be disappointed if you didn't?
I'll have some expectations for sure. It's hard to say now. I got Jordan Espinosa in front of me. But yeah, of course, I want to fight next, and I expect it. And I'm one of these guys who's serious about keeping this division around. So I don't expect me after I get this win over Espinosa to take a cruise out to Costa Rica or anything. I'm gonna stay stateside. I'm gonna stay busy, and I'm gonna try and get back in there and fight some fights. And hopefully people start paying attention to this thing because it's meaningful to me. And if it's, I don't know what makes people compelled to watch somebody fight. But how about the fact that every single time I go out there, I put it all on the line. I try my hardest, and I think I can be one of the best. So tune in.
Do you take great pride, because you mentioned, and it's a perfectly said way, that there was, the flyweight purge, so to speak, and a lot of good ones aren't there anymore. The fact that you did get a new 4-fight contract relatively recently, do you take great pride in the UFC saying, you are one of the flyweights we want to keep? It seems a very select group. It's not a big group anymore, unfortunately. Do you take pride in knowing they said, yes, we want you still to be here?
Well, it wasn't easy. It wasn't like they handed it to me on a silver platter. In fact, I was told that I was going to fight my deal out. I was told that I was going to fight my deal out at bantamweight, and they weren't exactly offering me easy fights. And not that I won easy fights, but they weren't doing me any favors. There were plenty of bantamweights that they could have fed me in the bottom tiers, and they didn't want to do that. They wanted to put me in there against tough guys. So I don't know where they were with it. So it's hard to take much pride from anything. This whole thing can all be taken away so quickly, and it's important to understand that. This is my run, I'm so capable of doing anything else in the world. This is my run right now, and I understand how delicate it is, and I intend on making the most of it. So, yeah, I feel good to get a new contract, but it was expected. And I was also hoping that I think I'm a freaking UFC fighter. I've been doing this a long time, and I take pride in my preparation, and I came from nothing too. I don't talk about we don't get to talk about it much, but I've never excelled at anything. I'll always tell people that because it's an important part of the story. So this is real to me. This is important. And
well, maybe then since you mentioned that you didn't come from them, you weren't necessarily great at anything. Does it just getting the contract in general? I don't know if this is your first extension with them or it's your second extension with them, but just to do you feel like you've proven it to yourself on a level, and any doubters? Because
and I have to take time to think about the guys who have also tried to get here. And I know that better men than me have wanted this and not been able to get there. Guys who far more talented, far more going on for them. So I have to be grateful, but at the same time, it's not super satisfying. It's not like confetti fell from the sky. I know how delicate this is. I know how easily it can all be taken away, and so when I go out there, I'll be fighting that way. I'm not fighting like a guy who's comfortable because he just signed a fat 4-fight deal. I'm pissed off, and I want more.
Did you get a hefty raise in terms of your contract? Were you really satisfied with what you got, and especially since they did mention that you were possibly going to just fight out your deal? Did you get what you were hoping for when your new contract?
I anticipated that they would lowball me, and they did not. Mick Maynard is a good man, and I think he knows what I expect. And listen, this contract's not going to make me rich, but it's a step in the right direction, and I'm satisfied. And I'm going to work my way through this one, and we're going to sign another one. And that one will be even better. So that's how this works, Nothing's quite fair, but sometimes things work out in a way where if you work for it and you earn it, they can't deny you. So that's kind of where we are.
You mentioned the Shreveport. I mentioned Shreveport. You mentioned where you're from. I wanted to bring this up too because you're from Louisiana. You have a connection with American Top Team. That said, are you rooting on different levels for Dustin Poirier in his fight against Khabib Nurmagomedov? Are you rooting for him as a fellow Louisiana guy, hoping that he wins and just further puts Louisiana MMA much more on the map along with yourself?
Yeah, it's not even the fact. Listen, Dustin Poirier is my favorite fighter. And he's one of my good friends, and even if I didn't know the man, he would be one of my favorite fighters. Of course I'm rooting for him. And man, I freaking love that guy. He doesn't know how much of a creep I am, but I freaking love that guy. And he's paved the way for a goofball like me. I've watched him his whole career, and he's brought me every step of the way too. he brought me out to the UFC headquarters all these years ago, and he's brought me along with everything and always told me that I was going to be there one day. So he's a big part of this. So of course I'm rooting for him. I am in the room with Habib though. I train at American Kickboxing Academy twice a week right now. I go over there and I grapple. So you got to give respect where respect is due, and Habib Nurmagomedov is the best in the world right now, and I understand that it's a tall task, but of course I'm rooting for Dustin. I love Dustin, but I have the utmost respect for Habib.
There's been a lot of talk about Henry Cejudo facing someone like Uriah Faber for the bantamweight title. Dana White kind of seemingly shot that down, but things change quickly when it comes to fight booking. Did the notion of a guy coming off of a nearly 3-year retirement to get a possible shot at 135, did it outraged many in the media? It outraged some fans. Did it outrage you as a fighter who, you just dabbled in bantamweight, but you are flyweight, you are so supportive of that division and want that division to succeed? Was that kind of like what the hell is going on? This guy should be fighting a flyweight. What's happening? Does that bother you at all?
It doesn't bother me. It's actually, man, it's all good for us, I think, ultimately, right? Henry's making himself into a star, that freaking goofball. He's doing a great job, and I'm happy for him. I'm proud of him. And this is when things like interim titles come into play, when a guy can't defend 2 titles. I think that's a more, that's a better reason to bring in an interim title than just to do it because this guy doesn't want to fight on this date. Two division champion garnishes probably, you need an interim champ in both divisions, maybe, and then those guys kind of hold the throne, and then if there's injuries or whatever, those guys can keep on fighting for the interim titles, and ultimately you hope Henry makes his way back from this surgery and is able to defend it. But if he's not ready to go, I know he just had surgery, he's probably still 6 months out from competition. This thing's still got to move, so I think both divisions probably deserve interim fights, and who knows how it will play out. But
who would you be your choice for flyweight interim title? Obviously, Joseph Benavidez would be in there. Who should be the person that would face Benavidez? Yeah,
it's hard to say at this point. It's hard to say at this point. But listen, I have a feeling here soon, maybe somebody will stand out. Maybe somebody will state their claim, and I don't know. I've got a good opportunity to be that guy. I'm not saying it's going to be me. But I'm saying I'm gonna go out there and frickin' try. So maybe not next, but maybe another fight. And I think an interim title would certainly be warranted. Perhaps, who knows? Saturday night, Jordan Espinosa. That's what we got in front of us right now.
Away from fighting, because I always like to end the interviews learning a little bit more about the subject, and so fans of the subject can learn a little bit more about them too. Away from fighting, what are some of your personal passions? Like, do you love flying kites? Do you love the beach? Maybe you're a big stamp collector. Maybe you're a reader. Maybe you like to cook. Maybe you like comics. What is Matt Schnell's? What is the things you like to do that makes you danger?
Danger was bred in martial arts, and my passion is martial arts. And you could ask my wife, who is also one of my passions, who I love and love spending time with. But this is what we do. We do martial arts, and when I'm not doing it, I'm teaching it. And I've got a group of guys back in Houston at Gracie Baja West Chase, guys who I care about, who are going out there and towing the line for themselves. And I'm extremely proud of those guys. And that's where my happiness is when I'm not in this cage, is watching these young men come into my facility and watching them become competitors and watching them grow up and find themselves through martial arts, which is how I found myself too. So martial arts is my passion. My marriage is my passion. And yeah. I miss my wife. I miss my freaking wife.
When was the last time you saw your wife?
Dang sure.
Okay.
I went home a couple weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago. I went home for a couple of days and spent some time with her. But people talk about making sacrifices, and training is not sacrifice. My coach Steve Bruno, he posted that the other day. You're devoted to training. You should be. It's not a sacrifice. spending time away from your wife, that's a sacrifice, you know.